So there's this question, isn't there? Something I think a lot of us kind of wrestle with, this fundamental human thing about fairness and, wondering about consequences. What really happens when someone maybe acts just out of self-interest, or worse, when they cause harm?
It's a deep one.
It really is. It echoes, through all sorts of spiritual thought, philosophy, and definitely just in our day-to-day lives. Like, how does justice actually work? Not just like in court, but in a bigger, almost cosmic sense,
Yeah.
beyond human judgment.
Right.
So that's what we're diving into today. We're really asking, what happens when consciousness gets laser focused on self-interest, maybe self-pleasure, and others kind of get trampled in the process? How does that deeper sense of justice unfold?
And what's really fascinating here is the source material we're looking at, karmic justice, love, equanimity, and the divine dance. It tackles this whole idea of karma in a really unique way. It moves way beyond the simple, reward and punishment thing that often comes to mind. It paints a picture that's much more intricate, insightful, and ultimately it's about rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation, okay, not punishment. That's key.
Absolutely.
So our mission today really is to unpack these big ideas. We want to explore the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of what the source calls karmic justice, understand why it works the way it does, its transformative purpose, and crucially, see how it all ties together with compassion and equanimity. Because, as you said, this isn't about human judging or some kind of cosmic tit for tat.
Not at all. It's presented as universal laws, principles of spiritual evolution.
Right. And hopefully we can give you a deeper, more nuanced take on it all. Sort of a shortcut to getting informed on this really profound topic, pulling out the core insights. Okay, so let's jump straight in. Part 1. Unpacking karmic justice, the mechanics of consequence. The source starts by breaking down what this term karmic justice actually is, and maybe just as importantly, what it isn't. It's pretty blunt about it.
Oh, it really is. No punches pulled. It says right off the bat, karmic justice is not sentimental. You can't, talk your way out of it with a quick apology if the intention wasn't genuine.
Right, no negotiating.
No negotiating. And it's definitely not punishment in our usual human understanding. It's not about some divine being getting angry or seeking vengeance.
That's such a critical point, isn't it? Because that idea of a punishing God is so common, and frankly, it often just creates fear.
Exactly. It shifts the whole perspective away from, this human-like judge in the sky handing out sentences.
Yeah.
It moves us towards understanding it as an inherent law. Like gravity.
Like gravity. Okay, so it's not about God being mad or keeping score. It's not punitive. So what is it then? The source calls it pure resonance, inevitability, consequence.
Yes, and God's symmetry. That's a phrase it uses.
God's symmetry. I like that.
It suggests a perfect balance. The system is designed, it says, for rehabilitation through resonance. That's the key phrase. Not eternal damnation, not endless suffering for its own sake.
So rehabilitation through resonance. What does that resonance part mean?
Think of it less like a judge handing down a sentence and more like an endlessly recurring mirror until compassion awakens.
Wow, an endlessly recurring mirror.
Yeah, it implies this sort of self-correcting feedback loop built into existence itself. The universe essentially reflects back the nature of your own energy, especially when that energy is all about me first, at the expense of others.
So the mirror just keeps showing you the same thing, maybe in different ways, until you finally get it, until that shift happens.
That's the idea, until compassion awakens. And the source actually lays out 3 specific laws that kick in when a consciousness gets stuck in that self-interest, self-pleasure mode, hurting others. These are like the core mechanics of how that mirror works.
Okay, 3 laws. Let's get into them. What's the first one?
The first is the law of resonance. The source also calls it CIS collapse. CIS stands for Consciousness Index Spectrum, which is a whole map we'll explore in detail later. But the core idea here with CIS collapse is that the person's field of consciousness literally contracts. It narrows. The source uses the image of an inverted cone getting smaller and smaller. An inverted cone, like a whirlpool drawing inwards. That's a strong visual. What does that mean practically? What does that contraction feel like?
Well, the implications are really significant and often quite subtle because they're internal. The source says this kind of consciousness starts to perceive less, feel less, even imagine less.
So their whole world just shrinks.
Pretty much. They literally shrink into the very prison they impose on others. Think about it. Things that used to bring genuine joy start to feel flat, muted. Simple pleasures lose their spark.
And indulgence.
That can easily turn into addiction. A desperate sort of craving that nothing seems to satisfy. The more they consume, whether it's power, wealth, pleasure, the emptier they feel inside.
So like someone builds a huge business empire by exploiting people, gets all the money, all the power, but ends up totally isolated, paranoid, unable to trust anyone. Exactly that kind of scenario. Every pleasure becomes fleeting, every win feels hollow. Their world effectively shrinks down to just their own escalating desires, which ironically traps them much more completely than, say, physical prison bars ever could.
So the justice isn't something external being done to them, it's an internal consequence. Self-imposed, really.
That's it. A direct result of their own energetic focus. They trap themselves in the echo chamber of their own selfishness, as the source puts it. It's a profound inward consequence, a self-limiting reality.
It really shows how subtle this kind of karmic justice can be. It's not always obvious from the outside, but it's deeply self-destructive.
Precisely. It's the universe, or consciousness itself, just resonating with the quality of the energy being put out.
Yeah.
If your energy is constantly pulling inward, only seeking for yourself, well, your capacity to experience the richness and connection of life diminishes accordingly. It's resonance.
That phrase is chilling, shrinking into the very prison they impose on others. Okay, so that's the law of resonance. What's the second law?
The second is the law of reflection. It's also called experiential inversion.
Reflection. Experiential inversion. Okay, this sounds more external, like the mirror is now showing them what they actually did to others.
It is, yeah. Often in a very direct way. The core idea is that whatever was inflicted on others, maybe subtle disregard, maybe outright exploitation, maybe cruelty, eventually comes back to the perpetrator
Yeah.
as their own lived experience.
Wow. So if you cheat people, you eventually get cheated. If you ignore someone's pain, you eventually experience that same kind of pain yourself. A cosmic role reversal.
That's the essence of it. The source says this can happen within the same lifetime. You might see it in broken relationships,
Yeah.
constant paranoia, betrayals by people they thought were allies.
Right.
Or, and this is crucial, it can unfold across different incarnations. They might literally be reborn into situations where they become the voiceless, the exploited, the powerless, experiencing exactly what they once inflicted. There's a principle stated very clearly. Divine consciousness ensures that what you refuse to empathize with, you eventually embody.
Okay, what you refuse to empathize with, you eventually embody. That's powerful. Think about a powerful executive who destroys livelihoods without a second thought.
And then finds themselves, maybe in another life, completely crushed by an impersonal system, unable to find work, feeling utterly powerless.
Or someone who spreads vicious gossip.
And then experiences the sting of having their own reputation ruined by lies and whispers. It's a direct reflection.
The source says they will taste the bitter cup they poured for others. It's stark. How does this actually force a perspective shift? Does it always work?
Well, the forcing happens through the directness and often the inescapability of the experience. When you are literally feeling what you once caused someone else to feel, it's no longer abstract, it's visceral. It bypasses intellectual defenses and forces an embodiment of the consequence.
So it's like the universe saying, you didn't understand it then. Okay, feel this.
Exactly. It's a direct experiential lesson in empathy. The goal isn't punishment for punishment's sake. It's to impart the understanding that was missing. Only by truly tasting that bitter cup can a consciousness genuinely grasp the impact of its actions and hopefully start to awaken that dormant compassion.
Okay, that makes sense. Resonance makes your inner world shrink. Reflection makes you experience what you inflicted. What's the third law?
The third is the law of stagnation, or entropy of spirit. This one feels more about the long game, like a kind of spiritual decay or hitting a cosmic dead end.
Entropy of spirit. Okay, like things just running down.
That's exactly the idea. Entropy in physics is about increasing disorder, things losing energy, becoming inert. Here is applied to consciousness, to the spirit. The core concept is that a life lived purely for self-interest, without any genuine service or connection to something larger, leads to this kind of spiritual decay.
What does that look like? How does spiritual entropy manifest in someone's life or experience?
Well, meaning just evaporates. That deep sense of purpose, of contributing, it just collapses. Life becomes about raw survival, maybe, or is chasing hollow pleasures. It's a self-defeating loop with no real fulfillment. The source links this to something called the ladder of emergent intelligences. It basically says that without aligning yourself with what it calls syntropy, which is the opposite of entropy, it's the drive towards growth, order, complexity, things like truth, compassion, justice. You can't move up this ladder.
So this ladder represents stages of spiritual evolution, higher awareness.
Exactly. And those caught in this spiritual entropy, this stagnation, they get stuck. They just keep cycling around on the lower rungs, metaphorically speaking. They recycle
Hmm.
until remembrance breaks through. They repeat the same patterns, face the same kinds of lessons, unable to evolve towards higher states of being.
Wow. So the justice here is profound. They delay their own evolution. Time becomes their warden. That's not a prison of bars, but a prison of time itself, of being stuck.
It is. It highlights the really long-term cost of purely selfish actions. While resonance might feel like internal constriction, and reflection is about direct experience, stagnation is about halting your own spiritual progress across lifetimes. You're not held back by some external jailer, but by the inertia of your own choices, your misalignment with the universe's natural impulse towards growth and connection.
It's like being stuck in first gear when the whole point is to learn to drive, eventually reaching higher speeds, higher levels of understanding.
That's a good analogy. The universe is patiently waiting, you could say, for that remembrance, that shift back towards interconnectedness and evolution. But until then, time itself acts as the container for those repeating lessons.
It all comes back to that idea of God's symmetry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not vengeful. It feels more like elegant physics, a self-correcting system. Exploiters become exploited, the unfeeling are forced to feel, the narrow eventually stagnate until they crack open.
Right, and the ultimate goal always is awakening compassion. Some might see these cycles, especially the law of reflection experiences, as a kind of hell. But the Source reframes it. It's rehabilitation through resonance. It's that endlessly recurring mirror until compassion awakens. It's not meant to be eternal damnation. The higher truth presented is that, yes, those who cause suffering will eventually experience suffering, but this isn't divine cruelty. It's actually presented as a form of mercy.
Mercy, how so?
Because only by fully understanding the consequences, by embodying what was inflicted, can a soul truly break free from those patterns, remember its connection to oneness, and genuinely awaken to compassion. The system is designed for liberation, ultimately, not perpetual pain.
Okay, now this is where you mentioned it gets really interesting. The Source takes these three laws and maps them onto this. Consciousness Index Spectrum, the CIS.
Yes. This is where it moves from abstract laws to a more concrete framework. It's presented almost like a map, charting a scale from -10, which represents complete predatory selfishness, all the way up to +10, which is enlightened selflessness, like a Buddha or Christ figure.
-10 to +10.
And this map, the CIS, shows how karmic resonance, those three laws we just discussed, actually moves a being along this scale. It gives examples of behaviors at each level, the kind of karmic justice that arises, and the typical evolutionary trajectory.
So it's not just theory, it's like a spiritual GPS showing the landscape of consequence and growth.
That's a great way to think about it. It helps visualize how this cosmic fairness plays out at different stages of awareness.
All right, let's walk through this map. Let's start at the bottom, -10, where the consequences sound pretty intense.
They are. So from -10 down to -7, we have the predatory exploiters. This is the realm of serial abusers, tyrants, true sociopaths. Life for them is purely about domination control. Often they actually derive pleasure from the suffering they inflict.
Wow, okay, so zero empathy, maybe even anti-empathy, seeing others just as objects.
Exactly. Complete disregard. Others are just tools or resources to be used and discarded. Their behavior is characterized by that absolute lack of empathy and often a willful cruelty.
And the karmic justice. Given the law of reflection, I'm guessing it's a direct and brutal reversal.
It is. The Source says they eventually incarnate as prey, as a slave, as a voiceless creature. Their own unrestrained will to power gets mirrored back as absolute utter powerlessness. The phrase used is stark. You hunted, now you're hunted. Imagine a ruthless dictator responsible for mass suffering.
Finding themselves reborn in a situation of complete vulnerability, maybe experiencing the exact abuses they inflicted.
Precisely. It's the law of reflection operating at its most extreme intensity. The trajectory for beings at this level, they're described as being stuck at bottom cycles until even they cry out for mercy.
That cry.
That cry for mercy born from unbearable suffering is seen as the very first potential step upward. It's the first crack in that hardened shell of ego, the first tiny spark of recognizing shared vulnerability.
Okay. Intense. Moving slightly up then to Solnimena 6-94. Self-serving opportunists. What's the difference here? They sound bad, but maybe not purely predatory.
Right. The key difference is perhaps subtlety and motive. These are manipulators, maybe corrupt officials, greedy corporate types. They exploit, yes, but often through more sophisticated means, loopholes, ethical gray areas, manipulation, networks of lies.
So less about enjoying the cruelty, more about calculating self-interest, even if it causes harm.
Exactly. They might not delight in suffering, but they're perfectly willing to cause it if it serves their ambition or greed. For them, karmic justice often plays out through the collapse of their carefully built schemes. Their networks of lies implode. They get betrayed by their own kind, the very people they used or manipulated.
Ah, poetic justice almost.
In a way, yes. Their success becomes, as the source puts it, a gilded cage of paranoia. They live in constant fear of exposure, of losing everything, and in future lives, they might find themselves crushed by the same kind of unjust systems they once exploited or upheld.
Becoming victims of the corruption they perpetuated.
Precisely. The trajectory here is that the direct experience of being cheated, oppressed, maybe scapegoated, that plants the seeds of empathy. It's still a harsh lesson, learning through betrayal and systemic injustice, but perhaps slightly less viscerally brutal than the predator level. It forces them to see the other side.
So for the opportunists, external consequences, like betrayal and systemic failure, become the teachers. Okay, now we get to the middle. Heminus 3-0. Ordinary self-centeredness, indifference. This sounds, well, depressingly familiar, maybe.
Huh. Yes, this category probably resonates with many of us. It's not about active cruelty or manipulation. It's more about a pervasive detachment from the suffering of others, a kind of bubble of self-concern.
Just focus on your own life, your own problems, your own goals, and not really thinking much beyond that.
Pretty much. Not intentionally cruel, but maybe dismissive, neglectful, or just plain oblivious to the pain or struggles existing outside their immediate sphere. The karmic justice here isn't usually dramatic external events. It manifests more subtly, often internally,
How so?
as a persistent feeling of emptiness, a lack of real meaning or purpose, even if they have material success, constant minor frustrations, a sense that something is missing. And in terms of rebirth, the source suggests they might find themselves in environments where their own deeper needs for connection, for affirmation, for security consistently go unmet. The phrase used is blunt. They taste what they ignored.
They ignored others' needs, so their own needs go unmet. They ignored deeper meaning, so their lives feel hollow.
That's the idea. It highlights how this kind of justice can be really subtle but deeply felt. Like you said, that internal void, even if you have all the external markers of a good life, the nice house, the job, a car,
Yeah.
but inside, it feels empty.
Like living in a beautifully furnished room with no air to breathe.
That's a powerful image for it. The trajectory for people in this range is that the frustration, the hollowness, eventually acts as a catalyst. That nagging feeling, is this all there is, starts to push them towards reflection.
So the emptiness itself becomes the motivator for change.
Exactly. The spiritual starvation becomes unbearable, prompting a search for deeper purpose, genuine connection, something that fills the void in a way material things never could. It's a slower, more internal awakening.
Okay, now we're crossing the midpoint, moving into the positive side of the spectrum. Here, justice sounds less like correction and more like refinement. What's at wood +1 to +3?
This is described as cooperative, but still self-oriented. So these individuals are generally willing to help others they cooperate, but often there's still a condition attached. Maybe they help when it's convenient, or when it enhances their reputation, or because they expect something back.
So empathy exists, but it's conditional. It extends to their circle or when it's easy, but maybe not universally.
That's the picture. It's not pure altruism yet. The karmic justice for them involves repeated lessons in interdependence. Life throws situations at them where their self-reliance or self-interest just isn't enough. They find themselves genuinely needing others. Or they might experience sudden events, illness, accidents, significant losses that starkly reveal the fragility of their perceived independence and highlight their fundamental need for connection and support.
So life's challenges serve as the curriculum, gently nudging them towards realizing that true strength isn't in isolation, but in connection, breaking down that conditional empathy.
Precisely. The trajectory is that through these experiences and the humility that hopefully arises from them, they start to discover a deeper, more authentic joy in genuine service, moving beyond that transactional mindset. They learn the value of we over just me.
Okay, climbing higher now. Sue +4 to +6, empathetic helpers. These sound like genuinely kind people.
They are actively kind, compassionate, often making a real positive difference. But the source suggests there might still be some boundaries of ego involved.
Ego. How so if they're genuinely empathetic?
Well, maybe they become attached to being seen as helpful, or attached to the outcome of their help, or perhaps their identity gets heavily wrapped up in being the helper. There's still a subtle I involved in the helping.
Ah, I see. So the karmic justice here isn't punishment, but a test.
Exactly. It's described as a refining process. They might experience being exploited by the very people they're trying to help, or face significant setbacks and disappointments in their efforts. Things just don't work out the way they hoped.
Ouch. That sounds tough for someone trying to do good.
It is. But it's presented not as punishment, but as a crucial test. Can their compassion withstand betrayal, ingratitude, or apparent failure? Does the kindness remain even when the ego isn't being rewarded?
So it deepens their discernment, teaches wisdom alongside kindness.
Precisely. It encourages serving without attachment to results or recognition, offering help unconditionally just because it's needed. The trajectory is that this balance of heartfelt service plus wisdom allows them to ascend into true altruism, where the action is purely for the benefit of others, free from egoic hooks.
This level really shows how justice shifts meaning. It's not about paying for wrongs, but about spiritual growth through challenge, testing the purity and resilience of compassion. Near the top now. +7 to +9.
Yeah.
Compassionate leaders.
Yes. These are individuals who embody altruism at a very high level. Think of major figures dedicated to social justice, humanitarian causes. They are deeply driven by justice, often self-sacrificing, dedicating their lives to serving humanity or alleviating suffering on a large scale.
So their actions are genuinely for the greater good, often at significant personal cost. What does justice even mean here? It can't be negative consequences, surely.
No, not negative in the corrective sense. Instead, it manifests as profound spiritual challenges that actually deepen their capacity. Their burdens are often immense. They might face intense opposition, persecution for their beliefs, deep personal sacrifice. They carry the weight of the suffering they're trying to heal.
Like historical figures who face jail, exile, or constant threats.
Exactly. Think of Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., figures like that. But the counterbalance, the source says, is immense affirmation, not necessarily worldly success, but deep love, profound spiritual support, a sense of cosmic grace flowing through them. They might suffer greatly for others, but they are also deeply sustained by a higher force.
So the trajectory is about integrating power, love, and wisdom through these intense trials, becoming truly transformative forces.
That's the idea. Through suffering for others, not because of past wrongs, they reach a state of profound integration and become beacons of inspiration.
Okay, so justice becomes a crucible for forging immense spiritual strength. And finally, the absolute pinnacle, Ober +10, enlightened selflessness, the level of Jesus, Buddha.
Yes. At this level, the source describes a complete absence of ego, no sense of a separate self, just the pure embodiment of oneness. For such beings, there's no karmic justice in the sense of correction or lessons, because there's nothing left to correct. The mirror reflects perfect self-realization.
So what happens?
Complete dissolution into the divine flow. They've transcended the cycle of birth and death that's driven by karma, desire, or ignorance. They don't have to reincarnate. If they do return, it's a conscious choice.
A choice.
Yes, they might choose to return as bodhisattvas, guides, or avatars purely out of compassion to help others still caught in the cycle. Their justice is ultimate liberation, freedom. The learning cycle is complete for them.
Wow. Okay, looking back at the whole spectrum, the pattern is really clear. The lower down you are, the more intense, more direct the correction seems to be, often through painful experience.
Harsher lessons.
Then as you move up, it becomes more subtle, more about refinement, testing, deepening qualities like compassion and wisdom.
Right. Polishing rather than hammering.
And right in the middle, around 0, it's that feeling of emptiness, boredom, lack of meaning, like a spiritual void. And at the very top, +10, justice isn't lesson anymore, it's freedom, liberation.
Exactly. Connecting it back to that bigger picture, the source emphasizes that karmic justice isn't arbitrary. It's like gravity in consciousness.
Gravity and consciousness. I like that.
Just as physical gravity pulls things towards the earth, this karmic gravity pulls consciousness into experiences that perfectly mirror its internal state. It's presented as an inherent, beautifully balanced law of the universe, ultimately designed for growth and awakening.
So the takeaway for us then, in our own lives, it seems to be selfishness narrows, it constricts, it eventually suffocates itself.
Yes.
Whereas compassion widens, it expands, it connects, and ultimately it liberates. And the choice which way we lean on that spectrum, that's always up to us.
Always. The potential for movement is inherent in the system.
Okay, this leads us perfectly into part 3, because understanding this system of karmic justice, this cosmic gravity, well, it could lead someone to a pretty harsh view of suffering, couldn't it? Like, oh, they must have deserved it.
Exactly. And this is where the source offers a really crucial counterpoint, a vital warning about the limits of human judgment. It's about balancing this understanding of karma with compassion.
Right. Because if you just focus on the mechanics, you could become quite cold.
You could. And the source stresses really strongly that only God, or oneness, or the universe itself, whatever term you prefer, truly knows the full picture, the entire complex trajectory of someone's karmic journey, what we see in a single lifetime, or even a single moment of suffering.
It's just a snapshot.
Exactly. Like judging the meaning of a book by a torn-out page is the analogy used.
Yeah.
We just don't have the context. The past lives, the intricate causes and effects, the soul's choices. Our human view is incredibly limited. We can't possibly make accurate judgments about why someone is experiencing what they are.
This raises such a huge question then. If we really get that, if we accept our limited view, how should it change the way we interact with suffering when we encounter it? Because the source is really clear that victim blaming, that whole they must deserve it attitude, is fundamentally wrong. It calls it a karmic violation in itself.
It does. It's very explicit. To look at someone's suffering and simply conclude they must deserve it is described as a lower consciousness inversion of understanding karma. It twists the principle.
An inversion. How so?
Because instead of leading to wisdom or compassion, that thought actually excuses cruelty and denies compassion. It becomes a justification for inaction, for indifference. It's often rooted in our own fear or a desire to feel separate and safe from suffering. We tell ourselves they deserve it so we don't have to feel empathy or obligated to help.
We close our hearts.
We close our hearts. And in doing so, we actually participate in the perpetuation of suffering rather than its alleviation. We miss the opportunity to embody compassion.
Okay. So if we're not supposed to judge and definitely not blame, what is the right stance? Especially when we're face to face with real suffering, the source talks about a higher stance, equanimity plus love.
Yes. And this is presented as the true vantage point of higher consciousness. It's a paradox, really, but a profound one. The idea is, when you zoom out to the cosmic level, when you contemplate the vastness of existence across time.
You can see the symmetry, the resonance, reflection, return.
Yes. From that high perspective, you can perceive the inherent justice, the perfect balance of karmic causality unfolding. You can have equanimity about the grand design. But, and this is the crucial part, when zoomed in on any being suffering, the only proper response is compassion.
Ah, so you hold both. You understand the big picture laws, but you respond to the immediate situation with heart.
Exactly. It's not either, it's both hand. You hold the vast impersonal truth of universal law alongside the immediate personal urgent call to mercy and kindness when faced with pain.
That's such a vital balance to strike. It's the integrated truth, as the source puts it.
It is, and it breaks down the pitfalls of leaning too far either way. It says, justice without compassionate cruelty. If you only focus on the law, the rules, the deserving, without empathy you become harsh, judgmental, uncaring. That's the trap of victim blaming.
Right, and you end up creating more negative karma yourself.
Precisely. But conversely, compassion without justice, naivete. If you're all heart, all compassion, but ignore the underlying principles of cause and effect, or the reality of consequences, you might become ineffective, easily manipulated, or fail to support real growth and learning both for yourself and others.
So you need both wisdom and love.
Exactly. Truth integrates both, the source states, remembering that karmic causality is vast, beyond human judgment. It's about having a wise compassion, understanding the law, but always choosing to act from love.
So what does this mean for us, practically, for the listener? How do we operate day to day with this understanding?
The operational stance becomes quite clear. First, above all else, alleviate suffering wherever you encounter it. That's the immediate human, even divine duty. Reach out, offer help, work to reduce pain.
Okay, number one, help.
Number two, resist and correct cruelty and injustice wherever you see it. Stand up against harm. But, and this is key, do so without vilifying the person committing the harm. The aim is to stop the harmful action and encourage transformation, not condemn the soul or perpetuate hatred.
Address the action, not attack the person.
Exactly. And third, while you can intellectually understand and trust that the larger karmic arc is real and unfolding, you must never use that belief as a justification to withhold mercy or aid from anyone. Regardless of what you think their past karma might be, we are not the cosmic accountants.
We're not the judges. We're supposed to be.
Yeah.
The helpers.
Agents of compassion. Exactly. It's not our job to figure out who deserves what based on past lives we know nothing about. Our job is to respond to present suffering with kindness.
This really echoes the core message of so many spiritual teachers, doesn't it? The source mentions Jesus and Buddha, specifically how they always focused on helping the person suffering right now unconditionally, not calculating cosmic debts.
Absolutely. Their lives were examples of immediate, unconditional compassion in action, meeting suffering with love, right here, right now. There's a key aphorism from the source that sums this up beautifully. In short, karma explains, but compassion heals.
Ah, that's powerful. Karma explains, but compassion heals.
Yes. Karma gives us a framework for understanding why things might be happening, why lessons arise, why patterns repeat. But that understanding should never, ever be a reason to turn away from someone in pain. Our role, our opportunity, is always to be instruments of healing, mercy, and upliftment, not administrators of justice we don't fully comprehend.
That has huge implications for how we live. It calls us to be healers, transformers, understanding that the grand design is ultimately about rehabilitation, remembrance, and waking up to our shared oneness.
Precisely.
Which brings us beautifully into part 4, integrating wisdom, equanimity, love, and oneness. You mentioned this profound insight earlier from the source. Equanimity without love grows cold. Love without equanimity burns out. Together, they mirror oneness. Let's unpack that. What does it really mean to integrate these two?
It's such a core teaching, distilling a vital spiritual paradox. Let's break it down. First, equanimity without love grows cold. Equanimity, by itself, is that calm, detached observation, seeing things as they are without getting pulled into emotional highs and lows, without attachment, like a still lake reflecting the sky perfectly.
Okay, sounds good so far. Peaceful.
It is peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's only equanimity, if it lacks that warmth of love, of connection, it risks becoming, well, cold. A detachment that can be mistaken for transcendence, but is actually more like indifference. A frozen stillness that witnesses suffering but doesn't engage, doesn't reach out, doesn't actually heal.
So you might be calm, but you're not connected, not helping.
Exactly. It can become a kind of spiritual apathy. You see the problems, but you don't feel moved to act. Your peace is maintained by staying separate, not by integrating the world's pain with inner stillness.
Okay, so that's equanimity growing cold. What about the other side? Love without equanimity burns out.
Right. Love, especially compassionate love, is naturally active, passionate, engaged. It wants to help, to fix, to embrace, to take on the suffering of others. It's the fire that warms the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if that fire isn't balanced by the grounding stillness of equanimity, it can become overwhelming. Passion without balance. Compassion that gets so consumed by the sorrow and pain it encounters that it leads to exhaustion, despair, burnout. The fire just consumes itself.
You see that sometimes, right? People who care so much, they just get completely overwhelmed and depleted.
Absolutely. Activists, caregivers, anyone deeply engaged with suffering.
Well,
Without that inner anchor of equanimity, that ability to witness without being completely swept away, the intensity of love and compassion can become self-destructive. They burn out, leaving them unable to help anyone, least of all themselves.
So the integration is the key. Together, they mirror oneness. It's not choosing one or the other, but finding the balance where they support each other.
Exactly. It's the divine remembering itself through that balance within us. Think of the ocean and the waves again. Equanimity is the deep, still, vast ocean, the unchanging essence. Love is the dynamic waves on the surface, interacting, moving, expressing.
Ah, nice.
One is the eternal witness, the other is the eternal embrace, the action. When they work together, when the waves know they are part of the ocean's stillness, and the ocean expresses its life through the waves that reflects the harmony of the divine, it's being fully present, deeply compassionate, yet remaining internally unshaken because you're anchored in that deep stillness.
Fully engaged, but not swept away. Profoundly connected, but with inner peace.
That's the goal, the integration.
The source offers some more of these distilled teachings, these aphorisms for what it calls the Codex of Conscious Metamorphosis. They seem designed for reflection, for really letting sink in.
They are powerful nuggets of wisdom, starting with karmic justice and compassion, reinforcing what we just discussed. First, that key line again. Karma explains, but compassion heals, keeping that distinction clear.
Understanding versus acting.
Right. Then do not confuse karmic law with karmic license. Suffering is never permission to withhold mercy, a direct rebuttal to any form of victim blaming. Suffering demands compassion, period.
Regardless of perceived cause.
Regardless. And finally, on this theme, the ledger of God is vast. Our task is not to tally, but to tend. It emphasizes our role as nurturing and caring, not cosmic accounting.
Our job is to tend the garden, not count the raindrops.
Beautifully put. Then there are aphorisms on equanimity and love, driving home their interplay. Only God sees the full arc of return. What we see is a fragment. Let our fragment be love.
That really hits home on the snapshot problem again, doesn't it? Given our limited view, the best default is always love.
Exactly. It's a call to humility and compassionate action. Since we can't know the whole story, let our contribution, our fragment, be one of love. And of course, the central balancing aphorism, equanimity without love grows cold. Love without equanimity burns out. Together they mirror oneness. That's the anchor point.
And lastly, some on justice and mercy, tying it all together. Justice without compassion becomes cruelty. Compassion without justice becomes naivete. Truth binds them both. Again, hitting that crucial balance.
Avoid both extremes.
And this final one feels really uplifting. The higher path is neither to punish nor excuse, but to uplift. It shifts the whole focus away from judgment or passivity towards positive, transformative action.
It does. It's about helping beings evolve, regardless of their past. These aphorisms, taken together, offer a kind of spiritual compass. They're dense, meant to be sat with, integrated into how we navigate the complexities of life, suffering, and our own inner landscape.
And to make this integration of equanimity and love even more vivid, the source includes this really beautiful parable of the two flames. It's one of those stories that just kind of sticks with you.
It really is. It moves the understanding from the head to the heart, makes it intuitive.
So the story goes, long ago in the vast temple of the cosmos, two flames were brought into being. The first flame was equanimity. It burned cool, steady, unwavering, never flickered, never disturbed.
It saw everything, mountains rising and falling, empires soaring and crumbling, but it just watched, still like a deep mountain lake reflecting the sky. Wars could rage, children could starve, stars could explode nearby. Equanimity didn't tremble, didn't flinch, serene, unmovable. But in its perfect stillness, its profound silence, the world around it actually grew cold. It witnessed, yes, but it didn't warm.
Witness without connection.
Exactly. Then there was the second flame, love. This one leapt high and wild, radiant, passionate, spilling warmth and brilliance everywhere. It couldn't stay still. It reached out with these vibrant tendrils of light, embracing the forgotten, weeping with the grieving, singing with the joyful, fighting fiercely against every shadow. Love just wanted to embrace the whole world.
Full of passion and energy.
Totally. But in its passionate burning, it often consumed itself. Where love clung too tightly, it turned into sorrow. Where it fought too hard, it became exhaustion. Where it gave and gave without that inner stillness, without rest, it just burned itself out, leaving only ashes and weariness behind.
The burnout we talked about. Right. So the cosmos, seeing these two magnificent flames, one so pure but cold, the other so brilliant but self-consuming, apparently wept. Because alone, they were incomplete. Powerful, yes, but out of balance. So the divine whispered a sacred truth to them, a reminder. Remember, you were never meant to be apart. Your highest purpose is found only in union.
The call to integrate.
And as that whisper touched them, equanimity opened its deep stillness to love's warmth. And in that warmth, it found a living purpose beyond just watching. And love, in turn, leaned on equanimity's unshakable stillness. And in that stability, it found balance, sustainable strength.
They completed each other.
They became this single miraculous flame, a mirror of oneness, a flame that could feel deeply without being consumed by sorrow, a flame that could witness everything without growing cold or indifferent, a flame holding the whole universe still and burning, silent and singing, witnessing and embracing all at once. And in that union, the cosmos remembered itself as harmonious oneness. What a powerful image, right? It just really sticks with you. It's not just an idea anymore. It's this living, breathing metaphor for what we can cultivate within ourselves.
It's truly evocative. It captures that integration perfectly, not just intellectually, but viscerally. It shows these aren't just concepts, but living energies within us waiting to find that harmony.
Yeah, and as I was thinking about that parable, the imagery just immediately made me think of, well, it felt like Shiva, you know? The stillness and the motion, that balance of like creation and destruction, peace and power.
Exactly. That's a beautiful connection and spot on. Your intuition is leading right into the deeper archetypal wisdom that resonates with the source material. Those two flames, love and equanimity, are absolutely reflected in the polarity embodied by Shiva, his profound stillness, and his dynamic cosmic dance.
Okay, so equanimity, that cool, steady, witnessing flame that's like Shiva in meditation. Mahadeva.
Precisely. Shiva, as Mahadeva, the great god, the eternal witness. He's the unmoving axis the whole cosmos spins around. Think of the classic image. The yogi, deep in meditation in the Himalayas, utterly untouched by the world chaos, by birth, death, creation, dissolution. That is equanimity, the calm, steady presence, observing everything without attachment, the unshakable ground of being.
Right. And then love, the active, passionate, engaging flame, that's Shiva as the dancer, Nataraja.
Absolutely. Love is the energy of Shiva Nataraja, the lord of the dance. His dance is the universe in motion. It's creation, preservation, dissolution. It's the fire of passion, yes, but also the profound compassion reaching out to suffering beings. It's the ecstasy of union and even the fury that destroys ignorance. It's the dynamic principle engaging with life, expressing, transforming.
So Nataraja's dance isn't just chaos, it's purposeful motion.
It's a perfectly ordered cosmic rhythm, but it is motion, engagement, expression. So Shiva, in his fullness, embodies both. Mahadeva, the silent, witnessing ascetic, representing ultimate inner peace and detachment, and Nataraja, the ecstatic dancer, full of energy, rhythm, fire, representing compassionate engagement with life. He holds both poles in perfect balance.
And the crucial point, just like with the flames, is that neither aspect alone is complete.
Exactly. The Source emphasizes this, and the Shiva archetype illustrates it perfectly. If you embody only the stillness, only the ascetic, the Source warns the world freezes into cold detachment. You become a witness who doesn't heal, a presence that doesn't connect. You might find personal peace, but you're not participating fully in the dance of life and compassion. It leads to spiritual isolation.
Okay. And if it's only the dance, only that passionate love without the stillness.
Then, as the Source warns and the parable showed, the world burns itself out in unrestrained passion. Compassion without that inner anchor of equanimity leads straight to burnout, sorrow, self-consumption. You're all fire, no stable ground. You get overwhelmed by the very suffering you want to alleviate.
But together, stillness and motion, equanimity and love, they create harmony. The world remembers oneness and polarity. It brings us right back to that core message. Equanimity without love grows cold. Love without equanimity burns out. The union is everything.
It is the teaching. Shiva, viewed through this lens, shows us that mirroring God, embodying oneness, means embracing both, being the still witness and the compassionate dancer, holding profound equanimity and boundless love simultaneously. It's the path of integral spiritual realization.
And the Source actually gives us a practical way to work with this, like a Shiva-inspired practice.
Yes, it offers a very actionable approach. First, it asks us to recognize these two flames within ourselves. Equanimity, the inner stillness that observes life's ups and downs with an equal gaze, without clinging or resisting, holding that quiet center. Love, the flame of motion, reaching out, embracing, uplifting, engaging with heart.
See them as aspects of our own potential.
Exactly. Then it uses Shiva's polarity as the guide. See Shiva the ascetic as your model for equanimity, that unmoving mountain, your inner core of peace. See Shiva the dancer, Nataraja, as your model for love in action, the ecstatic rhythm, your compassionate engagement with the world.
And remember the warning. Only ascetic risks coldness. Only dancer risks burnout.
Right. Embodying both is the goal, mirroring the divine balance. This leads to the union, the integrated state. When these two unite within us, we become like that single flame from the parable, steady and still at the base, equanimity, yet dynamically dancing and expressing at the tip, love.
Stillness at the center, motion at the edges.
That's the balance of the cosmos in a human life. The true yogi, the true servant of humanity, carries both, unmoved in their core essence, yet profoundly moved by compassion to act wisely and effectively in the world.
So how do we practice this? What are the steps?
The Source gives clear guidance in meditation. Sit as the ascetic, witness without judgment, breathe in stillness. Dedicate time to cultivate that inner quiet. Observe thoughts and feelings without getting lost in them. Find your unshakable center.
Okay, cultivate stillness.
In action, dance as the Nataraja. Let your love move into the world through words, deeds, and service. Actively engage your compassion. Offer kindness. Stand for justice. Serve others. Let your love flow outwards constructively.
Express love.
And in remembrance, throughout your day, consciously return to the one flame. Ground yourself by silently affirming, I am the stillness, I am the dance, I am love, I am equanimity, I am a fragment of oneness. Use it as a mantra to recenter yourself in that balanced state.
I am the stillness, I am the dance. That's powerful. It brings it all together.
It does. It loops back perfectly to that profound message, the heart of the divine dance. Equanimity without love grows cold. Love without equanimity burns out. Together they sustain the fire of awakening. That's the ultimate teaching here.
Be the still mountain. Be the dancing flame.
Be both, and you consciously participate in embodying oneness.
Wow. What an incredible arc we've covered. We started by really reframing karmic justice, Not as punishment, but as this elegant cosmic symmetry, a system of resonance, reflection, and consequence designed for rehabilitation, for growth, for remembering who we really are.
Moving beyond fear to understanding natural law.
Then we mapped it onto that consciousness index spectrum, seeing how justice looks and feels different all the way from -10 to +10, from intense correction through painful experience to subtle refinement and tests of compassion, to that middle ground of emptiness, and finally to total liberation.
Seeing the pattern across the spectrum of awareness.
And then that absolutely crucial counterpoint, recognizing the limits of our human judgment, the snapshot problem, understanding why compassion isn't just nice, it's essential, it's the higher stance, integrating the wisdom of cosmic law with the immediate call to act with mercy and kindness.
Karma explains, but compassion heals. That core distinction.
Exactly. And finally, diving deep into integrating equanimity and love, seeing how alone each is incomplete. One risks coldness, the other burnout. But together, balanced, they mirror oneness, using the parable of the two flames and the amazing archetype of Shiva to understand how to embody both the still witness and the compassionate dancer in our own lives.
Bringing it all together into a practice of integrated wisdom in action. This deep dive really shows a universe that's profoundly ordered, not chaotic, where our choices resonate deeply, guiding us through consequence and grace towards greater understanding and freedom.
So as we wrap up, maybe something for you, the listener, to reflect on. Where in your own life might you be leaning too much into that stillness of equanimity? Maybe feeling a bit detached, a bit cold, even indifferent sometimes. Or, conversely, where might you be burning out from too much unrestrained love, feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, consumed by the world's suffering or your efforts to help?
That self-reflection is key.
How can you, maybe starting today, consciously work to bring those two powerful flames, equanimity and love, into greater balance within you, in your thoughts, your interactions, your actions? What might that harmony unlock for your own journey, your own awakening?
Just observe that gravity of consciousness playing out in your life, the resonance of your choices,
Yeah.
and then actively seek ways to embody both the still mountain and the dancing flame. The potential for that integration, that remembrance of oneness, is always right here within reach.